Hello, listeners. This is Nihilist John from Hand in the Fire speaking. I'm here to provide a bit of an intro and some context to the podcast that you're about to listen to today. Hand in the Fire was started by the other John in our group when he noticed he had a lot of friends who enjoy thinking about and discussing thoughts and ideas. Thus, he gathers us all up once a week to chew the fat, as it were. I like to think of it as a chance to see philosophy in action, or as it forms instead of as an academic subject you're taught about in school. Our members are John, myself, who I'm going to call Nihilist John just to differentiate myself from the other John, Joe, Josh, and Matt. And we hope you enjoy listening to our podcast.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, for our second part on philosophy.
Yeah. And many of my beliefs are completely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I believe in a motive force beyond myself that may or may not be sentient? Yes. Do I think it's anything that we... Is it something we can conceive of? Yes. Is it something we can understand? Well, not so far, right?
Yeah.
You know. So, do I believe in such a thing? Yes. Do I believe in our own ability to do things we can't understand, we do not yet understand? Mm-hmm. I also agree with that. I'm pagan. And that entails a whole bunch of, well, most people would say weird stuff, right? But I've studied paganism, I've studied Western and Eastern philosophy.
It's a collection of ideas that you have ascribed to.
Yeah, and it is.
I felt kind of gypped when I moved in with you because I was expecting, like, sacrifices on Aztec altars to heathen gods and just terrible things, but no, you were normal. Fuck you, Joe.
Well, hey, most of my practice is internal and hermetic, right?
Yeah.
On the idea that if you believe, and keep in mind, it's internal within and mostly imagery, right? Okay. Which is we'll just call it a form of meditation, right? So most of what I do is meditation. Most of mine is within and a little bit Gnostic, which is something, right? Without the whips and the chains, because I don't like beating on myself.
Yeah.
Gnostics were very, very, deny the flesh.
Christ suffered, so you have to suffer.
Yes.
Yeah, which means they didn't listen to Christ, what he was telling them.
Mm-hmm. But, no, he didn't. They didn't pay attention at all.
No.
That's where you get the whole thing, castigate my sinful flesh. No.
Yeah.
Woot. Not exactly.
I just like to call them early extreme BDSM.
They kind of were, right? Located in a religious setting involving altar boys.
Yeah.
There you go. Right? But much of my belief systems, my belief systems in that direction are by necessity subjective, right? And I have tried things that have been described in pagan practice, and then what I believe to be observed in the world. Again, we all have the thing we can't prove. That's why it's subjective, right? There are things like, I believe that most people have no idea of the concept or the definition of good, right? So I thought about this, and then driving Uber, I've been asking people in my car for months now, what is good? What is good? One person in 2 months has actually come up with some idea, right? Very smart guy. Indian, works at the National Renewable Energy Lab. Very, very smart individual. And I had a great conversation with him as I drove him to the airport, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. He also told me I know more about Eastern philosophy than he does, and I don't think so. He probably has more of the cultural context for it. Mm-hmm. But I had to giggle at that, right? But for me, truth is a search for, right? If I can prove it in the world, if my method works, and I try to fine tune it, it's pretty much a forever process, which I find reassuring, actually.
Well, and I find that one common thread you'll find amongst almost all philosophers is ideas become toys. Ideas are things where they become very non-threatening. Mm-hmm. Your average philosopher isn't scared of new ideas or new information. For them, it's like finding a new shape of Rubik's Cube. It's a new thing for you to try and see if you can figure it out.
Sure.
And take it apart and figure out what all the parts are and where they were made and what they mean and all that mumbo jumbo. I personally feel like this is a really fun conversation to have with you wearing cat ears because it's a very good example of how, for instance, I argue that a lot of philosophers end up becoming very divested of public opinion. A lot of philosophers, once you start to realize that ideas are things that can be taken apart and understood and reassembled, and you can end up with things where, like, we've been talking about objective truth and subjective truth here, and you can have things that for any one person, they end up being both. Those are not
mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive ideas. So with that in mind, I feel like a lot of philosophers come to the realization that ultimately everyone's entitled to their own ideas, but none of us are entitled to respect anyone else's.
You know what? I'm willing to respect that you believe it, right? And I'm also willing to, like, if you want to directly confront me about it, prove you're wrong, or at least make the effort to prove you're wrong. But I'm thrilled when somebody proves me wrong.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing, is it all becomes a game.
It is a game. It's fantastic. It's absolutely engrossing, and I'm looking for the person to prove me wrong, because it'd be really nice to know where I'm wrong, right? Because if I know where I'm wrong, I can fine-tune my ideals and my beliefs and my viewpoint so that I can find where I can be more in line with the universe I find myself in.
Well, and that's one of my big things as well. My friends laugh at me because I tell them that I hate it when they agree with me.
Right?
And I tell them that people that agree with me are worthless, and I hate them. And they're like, John, that's a really extreme way to think about people that are agreeing with you. And I'm like, well, they're not adding to the conversation. They aren't showing me where I'm wrong. They aren't allowing me to grow. They're just agreeing with me and adding nothing, and I hate them.
They're kind of like somebody who walks into the boxing ring with you during practice and says, okay, you win, you're good at it. And they're not, like, boxing you at all.
Yeah.
And you're like, how am I going to get better at boxing?
Yeah, and part of my thing with that is I don't mean people that agree with me like you all have agreed with me in these past podcasts, because you all agree and add.
Yes.
I'm talking about those people that sit there and go, yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, God, please think about it.
And I go,
Please.
I hate you. Die, die, die.
They're like, no, think about it. I know I'm wrong. I know I'm speaking, and some part of this is wrong. Please tell me where I'm wrong, because I want to know that.
Yeah,
Right?
I never thought about this, but I guess I'm on some level a philosopher because I feel the same way. I question my beliefs. That's why I believe them, because I actually questioned them and I came to a conclusion that for me, I'm right.
Well,
I feel it's true to me.
And this is one of the reasons why I feel like philosophy needs to be taught in schools, like high school. Because not everybody makes it to college, but I think that we need to be taught this in high school. Partially because a lot of your formative ideas start in high school. And I think that a lot of people get introduced to philosophical ideas, but not to philosophy. And honestly, I think that explains Tumblr and social justice warriors, as they were exposed to philosophical ideas, but they weren't.
I actually have a thought on that in a moment, but
they were not exposed to philosophy.
I don't think they're. I think they were exposed. Fitz philosophy was political philosophy.
Yeah, it was social philosophy.
It was a social philosophy that had a very narrow focus and a very narrow. This is how you must be, right? I love philosophy for the critical thought.
I think history
for
will
the
be
analysis.
unkind to sociologists, by the way.
Huh?
I think history will be unkind to sociologists.
Oh, especially so right now, right? Sociologists are gonna get hammered, right? And so will psychology at this point, right? I think I heard the DM3.
I think psychology is starting to move in the right direction of fixing a lot of their problems, but yeah, they even like 10 years ago they were in the same place as the sociologists are right now.
Yeah, well, they've been changing definitions for political expediency, and that never ends well, or has not historically ended well.
Yeah.
Right. I love talking to you, Johnny, because God, I don't believe in nihilism at all, right? Not even kind of. And if you're like the happiest nihilist I've ever met.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Well,
and the rest of them are just emo about the whole thing.
I think that emo nihilists have failed to apply the theory correctly.
Oh come on, it's Nietzsche, right? And Nietzsche
was a happy guy.
was he?
Yeah.
You know what? All his theories. I read his theories. And I read his life, and my first thought was that dude needs a girlfriend, right? That wasn't his cousin. You know.
See, I read Nietzsche, and I see the most happy and proud humanist that has ever lived.
Okay. I see a really depressed emo guy who calls himself Night Pain. Okay, right? And that was my perception of it.
So I had a thing I wanted to share, which was you brought up Tumblr, and this actually reminded me of something. This is perhaps what I thought aesthetics was before, which in some ways might be part of aesthetics. But I was watching Game Grumps the other day, and Dan, who's the kind of the musician in the group, he asked, well, why is it that Tumblr got that reputation? Like, why do they act that way? And Aaron was like, I mean, they just do. And then it hit me, well, when you think about the way Tumblr works, and this is kind of how I'm trying to explore this concept here, it's pictures. Yeah, there's some commentary, yeah, there's some stuff, but the big thing about Tumblr is it's a picture sharing site. It's an image board. Versus, say, Facebook or Twitter. Twitter is brief spurts of 140 words, or 144 characters. And Facebook is however long you want it to be. There may be a picture, there may not be. It's primarily social. And then YouTube is whatever you can fit into a video. And something hit me that one of the problems with Tumblr is if people were, like, looking for their echo chamber, they were looking for their political advice or their life advice online, and they went to an image board, then inherently they're in a place where feeling is more important than logic, because pictures, in a lot of ways, are about feeling.
They're emotive.
They're emotive. Versus, say, YouTube, which seems to be predominated by, if anything, the groups like the skeptic community or the Let's Play community.
They're not really predominant.
No, but I mean, in terms of, like, Tumblr, 99% of Tumblr is probably normal people who are posting pictures. Only about 1% of them are what we think of as the Tumblrista social justice warriors. If anything political comes out of YouTube, they're typically trolls or centrists or right-wing. The left wing has almost been driven off of YouTube. And not entirely, but enough so that if you look at a lot of the major channels like Fisty Splinters and some of the others, that how many likes do they get anymore? How many subscribers do they even have? And I think it's because someone like Sargon of Akkad gets to actually sit there in his thing and give you his full diatribe fully explained and everything. He gets all of his logic out there.
Yeah, he does.
So I guess my confusion was that I thought aesthetics was a matter of how you present information. And how the presentation of information affects.
I would call his argumentation beautiful.
And I would say that would fit more into epistemology.
Yeah.
Is that's more about the expression and sharing of knowledge.
Yeah.
Aesthetics has more to do with things like color theory.
And so it literally is just like what is beautiful, what is cool, what is what we want to look at the moment. Or alternatively, like you have something like Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima, which was a song that was written pretty much under the pretense of, I don't want beautiful. I want this to sound like people dying from radiation poisoning. And the person was like, okay, I'll write that.
It succeeded, too, because that thing is damn disturbing.
Yeah, but then you also have aestheticists? Aestheticists, yeah, I guess that's right.
I've just run into that word a few times.
Who would go, that's beautiful too, and this is why. The fun thing about philosophy is that it is, I think it's what psychology and sociology wish they could be. Where
in a couple more millennia, sure.
Where philosophy never actually sets anything hardcore down, except in very small chunks. Like there's a good bit of logic that we know that's exactly how that system works. You really can't say that logic is 100% subjective. And then there's things like we have exact definitions of belief and fact, and we can use them to categorize things, and that's sort of figured out. But then, like, what is beautiful, what is knowledge, those are all very subjective, and you'll have people that throughout the ages will posit different ideas and things that we call their philosophy. And it's a constant debate. The issue's never settled. And philosophy is 100% happy with that.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
The goal isn't to create a lexicon where we can say that this is 100% definitively this.
Which is unfortunately what a lot of people seem to want because they want it to be easy.
That makes me want to clarify something. I said something to you. I said I found my truth, and I said I'm right. But that's not the right word to use, because I'm like, well, no, for me, it feels like I'm right. But I am completely open to the fact that I might not be. And also, I don't like using the attitude that word creates, because it's like, I'm not going to talk to you like that. I'm not going to be like, I'm right, you should listen to me. I'm going to be like, I'm going to just live my life, and you watch me how I'm living, and if you like that, then ask me some questions about it.
Well, like
because maybe you want to
that's
see
a very
how I came to that.
And that's a very Judeo-Christian, perspective that you live by.
That's actually...
It's lead by example is what it is.
Yeah, except for I don't even believe in saying it like that, because it's more just me living my life, because I'm not trying to witness to people.
Well, like in the addendum, I would say...
That's how I actually said to you or somebody a few weeks ago. I said I accidentally witnessed to people. And I've had people actually convert to Christianity just by watching me, and it's never been my intention to lead by example.
And that is the most purest form of lead by example, right? It's not your intention to. You live a life as virtuous as you are aware of, right?
Yeah. Or as I see
as virtuous as you can conceive of, right? Yeah. And then forms your belief system, and I can see that, right? So you live your life in that way. Other people who come in contact with you see that, right? And they act accordingly, right? That is lead by example. You're not trying to lead; you're just being Matt, right? And Matt is a good, caring, compassionate, virtuous man. Right? Probably. You are. You're a nice dude. You're a nice dude, right?
Except when I'm not.
You're much nicer than I am. Let's put it that way. Right?
I believe that.
Right? I am as good as I know how to be good. Right?
I don't care.
Well, good. I know you don't. Let's say not good.
I believe that too.
It's not so much good as I'm as effective as I know how to be, right? And effective to me is much better than a divorced ideal of good, right? Good people don't lie, blah 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 blah, whatever, right? Whatever's most effective, makes me most effective, and I find that courtesy makes me very effective because people want to help me. You want to do stuff for me. And I'm very excited by that because I do stuff for them, they do stuff for me, and we work together and go forward and life is good. And then we eat cheesecake, and cheesecake is fantastic.
Cheesecake is fantastic.
Right? But that's it's long been my belief that you don't really...
Is good.
Yes, we all agree. Cheesecake is good.
We're all Caucasian. We all inherently have to like cheese.
Yes.
And cake.
And cake. And we're just gonna, oh my god. But, it's long been my belief that you never have to be a philosopher is not that I studied philosophers, right? That you live an introspective life, you're willing to question your own belief system, and you're willing to express that to other people, right? Or at least explore it. Explore it, right?
You enjoy playing the game.
Yes, I do, very much.
And that's my big shtick, because I don't really study philosophers that much. I enjoy playing the game, and I play the game obsessively.
Yeah.
I play it almost every second I'm awake.
It's great. And I just call it messing with people, right? And I really do. And to a certain degree, it is me messing with people. And partly it's I'm looking for the new idea, right? Like I met a philosophy professor recently, right? Who's all about Faussant and Derrida, right? The land of postmodernism, really, really deep. I'm like, I didn't have time to dig into her. I really didn't. But I was very interested because she was like had a grant to study pedagogy, right? Postmodernist studying pedagogy is disturbing to me.
I've always felt like I want to take a collection of postmodernists.
Yeah.
And I want to put them on a farm. and I just want to put them with some blue collar people and wait and see how long it takes it for those postmodern ideas to break down.
Well, they'd be pretty good at breaking down pigs into component parts. They wouldn't starve right away.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, with that, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.